This lesson is all about rephrasing sentences. This tends to be quite a bit of a challenging exercise, especially when presented for you in the MedSec, because actually it is testing a number of skills and a range of knowledge. However, you will see with practice, you will start realizing that there is a pattern to the kind of questions that you will be facing. So, what kind of exercise are we talking about? You have to change the structure of a given sentence, but still retain the same meaning. When I said that you will be tested on different knowledge, I was referring to your knowledge of reported speech, your knowledge of conditionals, punctuation, passive and active, mostly those. Remember, as always, practice makes perfect, and as I said before, you have to get familiar with the patterns of the sentences. So let's start practicing. You have been given 4 exercises on the handout, and we'll be working these out together. So the first thing I want you to do is to try the first exercise on your own. Even if you get stuck, see which ones you can manage without additional help, and then I'll be showing you the answers. So as usual, at this stage, I'm going to ask you to pause the video, work it out, and then we'll look at the actual model answers. Okay, so let's take a look at the answers. You were given an example so that you get an idea what is expected from you. I tried my hardest, but I still couldn't understand. However hard I tried, I still couldn't understand. Mary succeeded in her final exam because she was really prepared. Then you were given if to start. If Mary hadn't prepared really well, she wouldn't have succeeded in her final exam. There you're being prompted to use the conditional, and probably you realized that. Here you are being prompted to use the third conditional. The second one. As soon as she received the good news, she phoned her sister. And you were given no sooner to start. No sooner had she received the good news than she phoned her sister. So keep this as a rule in mind. When you have this kind of sentence, as soon as and so on, it needs to be changed with no sooner in the beginning, use of the past perfect, had received, and the use of then in the second part of the sentence, in the second clause. The third question. Hello, Jane. I've passed the exam thanks to you. So here we have direct speech, which we need to change into reported speech or indirect speech. She told Jane that she had passed the exam thanks to her. The fourth one. Jane replied that all that revision had been really helpful. Now, this is the opposite of what we've seen before. We have reported speech, which we have to change into direct speech. Jane said, all that revision has been really helpful. Remember the rules of using reported speech, whereby you have to change the tenses, and sometimes you also have to change the time phrases and the pronouns. And lastly, number 5. Jane had no words to describe her joy. No words could describe Jane's joy. Let's keep on practicing in exercise 2. Once again, I prompt you, I suggest that you pause the video, you work the exercise out on your own, and then we'll look at the actual answers. And these are the answers. Sue will finish her exams and then she will have more free time. Once Sue finishes her exams, she will have more free time. I was so tired because I had been working hard. Once again, an example of the conditional. If I hadn't been working so hard, I wouldn't be tired. As soon as I arrived home, Mary started nagging me. No sooner had I arrived home than Mary started nagging me. So once again, we have the sentence using no sooner than. Another two examples of reported speech. She asked me why I hadn't come on time. She asked, why didn't you come on time? I replied I had to work overtime to finish the job. I answered that I had to work overtime to finish the job. Finally, Mary advised me to start my chores straight away. Mary told me if I were you, I would start my chores straight away. Third exercise. Once again, pause the video, work it out, and we'll check it together. I hope that by now you have already started spotting the patterns. Let's check the answers. I've never had problems with this car. This is the first time I've had problems with this car. It was such an awful day that we stayed indoors. The weather was so awful that we stayed indoors, or that we had to stay indoors. Let's watch a film, suggested Judith. Judith suggested to watch a film. As a rule, I don't like watching films. As a rule, I am not very keen on watching films. In fact, I'd rather play a computer game. In fact, I prefer playing computer games. Jenny advised me to do that later and watch the film with her first. If I were you, I would do that later and watch the film with me first, Jenny said. Last exercise. Exercise 4, the same thing as before. In this exercise, you're going to be using the active and the passive. We've already had a session about that, and this is another exercise where you're going to practice that knowledge. Pause the video and work it out. And these are the answers. Someone as yet unknown has killed the mayor of Medora. The mayor of Medora has been killed by someone as yet unknown. So notice that, just a quick refresher of the passive, we change the tense, has killed, changed into has been killed, and we might need to include by, to include the person who did the action. A friend of the family found the body in the garden of the mayor's house. The body was found by a friend of the family in the garden of the mayor's house. The second one, the murderer committed the murder at around 11 o'clock. The murder was committed at around 11 o'clock. The maid saw 3 young men near the house acting suspiciously. 3 young men were seen by the maid near the house acting suspiciously. The police are now questioning the maid. The maid is now being questioned by the police. All the village will miss the mayor. The mayor will be missed by all the village. So this is all I had to share with you regarding rephrasing sentences.